This is for you if you are getting started with homeschooling in the 2023-2024 homeschool year. Or if you're just homeschool curious, stick around, learn a few things about homeschooling from a homeschool mom that's been there, done that over the last couple decades. I've got 4 homeschool kids that have 3 out of 4 have graduated. So when you first step off this beaten path, I call it the conventional path. Leaving that conventional schooled path behind, you might have a few uncertainties and doubts. And girlfriend, if you don't have it, I know that quickly you'll be fueled with them, or at least have many of them filtering around your head because other people are going to ask you questions. And I'm sure you've already had them. You're going to have uncertainties and doubts, and you might research and read about routines and curriculums. You're going to talk to people about how they did it. You're going to talk to them about how you should choose methods or what you should do for a planner, all those things. And it is going to feel like a lot. It's going to feel overwhelming at times. There is so much. There's so many opportunities, so many books, so many ideas, so many online resources, especially now, and really just so much of so many things. You are at the very beginning wondering even, how do I do this? Is it legally required that I go to a specific place and let them know I'm homeschooling? Well, that is a question that I can't answer over YouTube because I don't know where you live. If you want to join me in a conversation, you can schedule an appointment with me. It's free. You can learn more about coaching too if you'd like, but you can learn about how you could go about homeschooling, where you might want to talk to someone about homeschooling. I also have a link in the comment section below where all the states and provinces, United States and Canada, I have the people that are most commonly known in those areas where you can access resources about whether it's legal, and it is in states and provinces. I can't say for the rest of the world, but there are different resources there that you could find out more about how to go about the legal requirements. But you're stepping off the beaten path, the conventional schooled path, and you are going to find more things to research than just, is it legal and how do I go about doing it? This is a rite of passage, your first homeschool year, for the new homeschoolers to do a whole bunch of research. It's classic. And so from one homeschool mom to another, I can tell you that you're gonna do it. It's also not entirely all useful for you because you're going to discover things that you didn't know that you were supposed to decide on. And take a deep breath with me. I will just encourage you and remind you that indeed you will figure it out. And in due time, the things that are most important will rise and it will get clear to you. You do not need to do all the rabbit trails of research, though. I'm going to say that to you, but I also know what it's like to be that mom and learn that, but I need to know what I'm supposed to do next. Yes, I'll chat to that in a moment. I recognize that you are taking a huge responsibility in choosing to engage your child's education. That is a big responsibility. The culture is right on that one. It's a giant responsibility, but how we understand what an education is anyway, or how it actually happens, I don't necessarily agree with what conventional theory is or conventional perspective is. But it is a big responsibility and it sure feels big. That is why we feel so uncertain and doubt-filled, for good reason. But from one veteran homeschool mom to a possibly new one or a homeschool curious person, here's a few things that I would share with you to get started homeschooling. First of all, if I haven't introduced myself, I'm Teresa Wiedrich. I have been a homeschool mom for a long time, but I also am a life coach in the homeschool community. So I work as a homeschool mentor and as a life coach. You can find my website at www.capturingthecharmedlife.com. And I'm here to support you in the homeschool journey, to get clear, to get confident in what you're doing. in the first homeschool year, in the second, and beyond. I think you don't have to homeschool with fear, with uncertainty, with a lack of confidence. You really can do this homeschool thing confidently and enjoy it too. Most days. It's life. It's not going to be all days. Here's a few common concerns that I often hear from new homeschool families. I'm not going to address them here. You can find all of the links to specific past articles in the website below. I've got a specific article that's connected with this video. One is a beginner's guide to your first year of homeschool. It's both a podcast episode that I've put out on my podcast, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, and it's also an article that you can read. There is a guide that goes with it. If you are a new or a first-year homeschool parent, I have created a guide for you that is first a little bit of wisdom right off the top, and then over the course of 52 weeks, a year, you're going to get encouraging letters of, email. You're going to get an email, except it's going to be personalized to you. It's going to address your actual questions, because when you share your questions or thoughts with me, I'm going to reply an email so that you and other new homeschool moms can be encouraged and get clarity on what your next step is. And you're going to get that all year long, every week. And it's free. There's another discussion about should I homeschool my child, and I both include that video inside the post or the article called Get Started Homeschooling in 2023-2024, because you might be here and you see Get Started Homeschooling in 2023-2024, and you're like, well, I'll just check it out, see what she says. I have a specific video for you if you are not quite sure if this is the right thing. And dare you think that I'm going to tell you it is for sure? I'm actually not. I will give you a few clues for you to determine whether this is the right choice for your child or for you. I share in this article about the surprising transition that I've had from going from a schooled environment to a homeschool. I've also had a couple kids go from the homeschooled environment to the schooled environment. And I've also had the kiddo that went through homeschool high school. So there's a lot of content there for you to kind of mull over, but know this right from the get-go. Unless your child is in high school right now, you don't need to think about what's life going to be like in grade 12 for your kindergartner. I know that it's instinct to plan. I've been there. I have done that kind of planning myself. And also, it's not necessary right now. Right now, you're focusing on your child this year, because you can change it from year to year. Another common conversation point that I have with people is about gaps. But what if my child has gaps? How are they going to get into grade 10 if we don't know, you fill in the blank, something that you think they need to have before they go into high school? I address all of that in a podcast episode and an article called What About Gaps in My Child's Home Education? And if you're wondering if you need to be a certified teacher, I've got a podcast episode just recently released on that as well, called Teach Your Own Homeschool Confidently Without Being a Certified Teacher. I could go in many different directions trying to remind you that you already are a mother teacher, because you have already been engaging your children in many different ways as a teacher, but a mother teacher, not a certified school teacher. And also, I could go in the direction of saying that I have met a lot of school teachers through my podcast years, through my coaching years, and I have learned, they say it's working against them, not for them. I'm sure there must be a homeschool mom out there that was a teacher that would say that it was beneficial for them, but I haven't met that teacher yet. If that's you, put your comment in the comment below. I'd love to meet you. What do homeschoolers want to deschool from? I get a lot of discussion around deschooling, which is kind of like a popular word these days. And it really, if you haven't been introduced to deschooling, it is this very simply. Deschooling is coming away from traditional educational schooled mindsets that don't serve you or your kids in your homeschool. Check out that article, What do homeschoolers want to deschool from? A specific list, and then add a few comments at the bottom of the list. I'm curious if you can, because I've got quite a few there. Some people will ask me how to deal with homeschool overwhelm, although I would typically hear a discussion on homeschool overwhelm before the third or fourth year, because by the third or fourth year homeschooling, you have had your rite of passage, your experience into homeschool overwhelm. What about what does homeschool cost? In a nutshell, I'll tell you that I wrote an article about that, but it depends. Depends on how you spend. Depends on how you think about what an education is. I have a chat about the 3 things that I wish I knew before I homeschooled. I talk about homeschool philosophies or methods. You may have heard various words being thrown about, and if you haven't, you will. Things like Charlotte Mason, unschooling, self-directed learning, unit studies, child-led learning, interest-led learning, Montessori, Waldorf. Did I mention Charlotte Mason? There are so many possibilities. Classically, by the time you're your 4th, 5th year of homeschooling, you're eclectic homeschooling, which means you're taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that and calling it eclectic homeschooling. But sometimes there are purists that focus in one philosophy or the other. It is my opinion that though you can learn about all these different homeschool philosophies, you don't need to commit to any of them. You need to commit to your child. I have a conversation in that article about how to homeschool with confidence in 5 not so easy steps. And just yesterday morning, I released an episode about turning your doubt to confidence on the Homeschool Mama Self-Care podcast. If you have any questions as to how to get started homeschooling, you can put a comment down below, but I would encourage you to check out the booking link. It's free. No commitment. And it's just you and me connecting over, is this homeschooling thing right for you? And if you would like to consider coaching, we can talk about that too. So to get started homeschooling, I think there's a few key things that you might need to know. Obviously, the legal requirements, because every state, province, country has different legal requirements and expectations. You'll want to research and comply with the laws for your good sense of peace. Also, curriculum. Obviously, you're going to do that, but I didn't need to tell you that. You're going to choose a curriculum, or you're going to choose an approach, perhaps that doesn't require curriculum. Yeah, mind-blowing, but it happens, and I've done it. But I wouldn't have done it in my first year, I will say that. You got to do some research on learning styles, learning more about how kids learn, learning about their child development, really useful for you. Not only, it's not that you're trying to become all-knowing about learning or learning styles or child development. It's that you're trying to understand your child. And you won't entirely, but as much knowledge as you can gain around your specific child, you'll have a whole bunch more peace in how you're approaching it. You'll have a whole bunch more patience in how you're approaching them. It's valuable for you to do a deep dive into learning styles and their developmental stage. You are obviously going to check out all sorts of things about schedules and routines. You're setting a schedule and a routine. Or some people will just say a routine because you don't need a schedule, and I would be one of them, but I do know there's plenty that like their schedules or day timers. It just simply makes you feel sane and organized. You could do it as loosely as you want or as detailed with color markers as you like to. Consider creating a support network before you start your homeschool year, your first homeschool year. I am a proponent of social media. Yeah, I am. I actually think there's a lot of benefit being on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you find most valuable. That's where I am, is Facebook and Instagram. I have a Facebook group called the Homeschool Mama Support Group. I have an Instagram account called the Homeschool Mama Self-Care, and my intention in all my spaces is to support you to be confident, authentic, and purposeful in your homeschool. That's my goal, and that's what I do. in coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and in my social media spaces. But I've certainly learned this. When I went really public, I jumped onto Instagram and Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic. And that was when I discovered, yeah, you can actually create legit community in those spaces, community that makes you feel like you are known, that you are cared for. No, it's not the same as in-person community, but it is real, authentic community. Find your support network. I offer just this year, in fact, just over the last few weeks, a guide for the first homeschool mom year. And alongside that, I am offering, but this is a paid community, twice a month event for new homeschool moms. I already have a Patreon support group for the 2nd to 5th homeschool moms, or 2nd to 5th homeschool year moms, 2nd to 5th year homeschool moms. There, I got it. And I already have a support group for them. And that means that we meet either for a workshop once a month for pertinent subjects that are actually required by them, not ones that I just determine, and also a support chat, so getting to know each other. And it's really interesting to meet women around the world. It is so cool. Some of the places that they live, I won't say it aloud, but you can come and meet. But needless to say, if I could do a homeschool co-op, I would definitely take my kids to those two places every week. I have already nominated them. So I offer that. There's a Patreon support group for the 2nd to 5th year homeschool moms, and also for the first year homeschool moms. So that might be you. And if that's you, I think it's going to be a unique opportunity, because I'm going to use the actual case scenarios, in other words, your real life stories plus anonymity, and share it in a newsletter each week, answer whatever the challenge is, and then use that for all the moms that are in the first year homeschool mom community. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, just type guide below and I'll make sure you access that guide. And I can give you the link for the Patreon support group as well. So one of the things you're going to need to learn to build into here is flexibility. And you probably know this one. Patience. Yes, and if you're as patient as I am, it's been a journey. I remember early in my homeschool years when people would say, I could not homeschool. No, I couldn't. I'm not patient enough. And I was like, is that a prerequisite? That is a problem. No, I wasn't either. And in fact, some moms are. Some moms are. Lots of moms aren't. And so if you're in that camp, welcome to being a mom. We learn what our triggers are quickly when we're a mother. When we are an early mother, we are surprised at how impatient we can be, or anxious, or you name the big emotion. But we discover all sorts of things inside of us because our children, I believe, are our mini mirrors. And then they grow up a little bit and we discover that we're even more frustrated unless we deal with those big emotions, come up with a plan to address those big emotions. So we have to come up with a plan. And I offer coaching around big emotions, self-compassion, all that good stuff. Probably the most powerful coaching that I can do, so that you can feel really at ease and present with your kids and actually happy with what you're doing and not overwhelmed by mom guilt. But flexibility and patience and persistence are required for you to continue to grow in. You are not going to have it figured out before you homeschool. If you are, let me know. But you're also not going to figure it out after you homeschool, because I'm at the tail end of my homeschool years and I still have to say, whoa, what's going on here? I'm feeling a lot right now. And I have to ask how I'm feeling. What are the thoughts behind my feeling? And go through the stories that I've created around those thoughts. And I think it's a life journey, this whole growth thing. But if nobody's told you before, if you enter homeschooling, you will discover those things, or you will get very clear on the challenges that you have. Or at least you'll discover that you have triggers. You're not as impatient or as patient as you thought you were. So I want to share with you a little bit about my first perception about homeschooling. I had to think way back to, what was I thinking? So, two things. One, I want you to know that I have actually written a book called Homeschool Mama Self Care Nurturing the Nurturer. And so I just read that book, the first part of the book, to remind myself what was I experiencing when I was in my new homeschool phase. First of all, how I homeschool, how you homeschool, they're going to be different. You might be coming to it for very different reasons than I did. You probably aren't researching it for as long as I did. I would love to hear if you have. I homeschooled after 2 years of researching my homeschool choice. That's when I started homeschooling. So my oldest daughter she finished grade 2 in a private school. And that was when that I decided to take her home because I knew I was moving a different province. And so then I thought, well, we're moving and that's a pretty big shift. So maybe that's when I'll start homeschooling. And my notions about what I thought homeschooling were, well, you know what I thought it was because I titled my website Capturing the Charmed Life. And I started that website within months of homeschooling. So my goal in my first homeschool year was the charmed life. And in my mind at that time, it was pretty much utopia. I had an expectation that my family would experience utopia because we were homeschooling, so much freedom. And there is a lot of freedom. But my version of homeschooling was me with my 3 little girls in white dresses and slamming screen doors, going to the garden. When we lived in Prince Edward Island, we have a homestead. They'd go pick peas for lunch, or after lunch, we'd have read alouds. Maybe we'd read Secret Garden on the couch, or maybe Anne of Green Gables on our white couch. And then we would live happily ever after. You know, utopia. And for some reason that I still do not remember why I had this vision, it had to be PEI. It's now British Columbia, where I now live. And why a white couch? Because I already purchased one from IKEA, which I might add is the antithesis of homeschool utopia, because a white couch is in no family home going to stay white. And I do not own that couch anymore. No surprise. Well, I learned that homeschool utopia is not a thing. There's a lot of challenges along the way. And if you're clear on why you're doing it, though, and you're willing to learn a few strategies or many, you will overcome a lot of those challenges and you will feel satisfied and successful in your homeschool. In the last week, I got to graduate one of our daughters who graduated from a college. And she is a ballet dancer on the other side of the country. And then my another daughter just graduated high school. Pretty surreal for me. But though I have made many mistakes along the way, and I have moments of regret that I didn't approach things the way that I wanted. I didn't see how I should have done it in a way that would really serve a child, or I didn't show up on purpose and I didn't deal with my big emotions, or I didn't de-school and really find out what an education was and who the child was in front of me at all times. I didn't do all of those things perfectly, flawlessly, obviously. And so you'd think, would I have regrets? Should I maybe not have homeschooled? Heck no. It was an amazing journey. It's been an amazing family life opportunity in a way that just so much freedom. It turns out my 3 little girls, by the way, are also way past wearing white little dresses. And I have a son who's about to enter the high school years. I learned that you can indeed homeschool across Canada, not just PEI. We did, though, read a bajillion read alouds, and they are all in the other room with a lot of dust. We didn't live happily ever after, but we have enjoyed so many moments and have so many memories because of this big, beautiful, freedom-based lifestyle called homeschooling. But what my reality is and what my original vision definitely were not the same. But freedom has remained our constant companion. I have experienced a variety of challenges, as I've shared with you, especially around overwhelm in the first 3 or 4 years. That's what I actually write a lot about in that book that I referred to. But I also have posts or articles on my website, like how to handle homeschool overwhelm, what to do when you're fed up with homeschooling, how to manage impatience with 14 different strategies, or how to address your big emotions, and how my story of deschooling brought me more freedom and purpose. And I talk about building boundaries too, and you'll learn why if you stick around with me for a while. There's no question to me that it hasn't been utopia, but it has been an amazing lifestyle for family, and it will be for you too. You're going to find on this post, Getting Started Homeschooling 2023-2024, that video about should I homeschool, if you happen to be one of the people that are watching this and not quite sure yet. But if you are committed to it, I want to just give you a little bit of advice. Be realistic about how much time you have to plan your homeschool, your upcoming homeschool, because you could spend the entire summer planning. I did 2 years. You can certainly do the entire summer. You can, read the blogs, listen to podcasts, or discover all sorts of rabbit holes of resources and social media and all the things. I have my own Homeschool Mama reading list, which you can access on that page. I've got a list of podcasts that you can listen to outside of my podcast. There's so many amazing offerings and resources available to you, but you really won't figure it all out because there really isn't one right way to homeschool. And your children are growing, and they are just growing right in front of your eyes. So you don't want to miss those moments just researching the entire time. And also, you probably want to time block your research or your homeschool research time because you want to do other things outside that. But when you decide that you're going to set aside time specific to homeschool planning, you can, decide when you're going to do it, then do it during that time and put it away. Just let it simmer. Consider, what are the right things for my children? You're welcome to join me in that first year homeschool mom support group. And then you start doing the thing, and you will build confidence as you do a new task, like the big role of homeschooling. You're going to build confidence as you do it, as you watch your children, as you begin to trust yourself, you begin to trust this learning process, you begin to understand that you really don't like waking up early in the morning, or you really like waking up in the morning. You're going to learn so many things about yourself and about your kids, and you just got to lean in to learning. I encourage you to check out this post, because I share all about how academics are not synonymous with an education. So you can think outside the traditional learning box. I do a lot of that on my website in my group coaching. And I've got different resources for those that are beginning a homeschool, kindergarten, or maybe they're beginning a junior high or a high school in their homeschool this fall. I share why my homeschool or why my family homeschooled. I address the S question. If you haven't been asked already, that's the socialization question. You'll be asked that if you haven't already. In the beginning, I asked that. I can't believe I asked that, but I did ask that. And I address that in a variety of different ways. When you get started homeschooling this fall, first of all, welcome to homeschooling. And then remember that there isn't one right way to homeschool. Since there are only 1 to 15 children in your home, if there's more, let me know. And you are responsible for homeschooling only 1 to 15 kids, you only have to find 1 to 15 ways to do it this year. And then you mentally commit to this year. And then you really only do it for 1 month, because you'll probably change it within 1 or 2 months anyway. And from one homeschool mom to another, I've learned that you never get things right, perfectly, fully right for any of them. And I don't know that there really is a right anyway, but we can sure try. And I know that we're constitutionally bound to do so. That's my belief. But as with every area in our lives, I think we're called to growth, not perfection, because perfection ain't going to happen. I'll just tell you that straight up. It's not a thing in the homeschool realm. It's not a thing in the family realm. It's not a thing that we're going to experience here. Growth is a thing. Process is a thing, or process if you're American. And learning is a thing. So I believe there is not one right way to homeschool. So with me, take a deep cleansing breath and accept your perfectly imperfect homeschool life. Do it now in whatever way seems right to you, and continue to learn and process and grow and discover a new way tomorrow if it needs to shift or change. You want to create a support community for sure, though. So whether that is checking out the Facebook groups or finding out what kind of homeschool co-op or community or resources are available in your local area, or doing it online, you want to have somebody walking alongside you, especially in that first homeschool year. But hey, can I just say welcome to homeschooling? I am delighted that you are considering it. I know that it's going to be an amazing journey for your homeschool family. If you need to connect with me, I'd be delighted to connect with you, because I don't like staying on the other side of a camera and not knowing the people that I'm chatting with. It's kind of fun sitting here in this room, different room, and getting to know the reasons why families are moving to homeschooling and what their challenges are, and whether or not I can serve and support you. So I'm Teresa Wiedrich. You can find me at www.capturingthecharmedlife.com, and it was a pleasure to chat.